Hello, everyone. Welcome to Small Talk. Well, joining me today is Rebecca Mears. Welcome to the show.
I'm very happy to be here.
It's so nice. By the way, unfortunately, I've given Rebecca the wrong address. So she's trying my intercom and it's not working. And it's like, oh my gosh. So we figured it out, though, obviously,
We
because you're
did.
here.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that you used to be a radio talk show
I
host.
did, yeah. A friend and I used to run a talk show every Friday out of the SFU station in Vancouver.
Oh,
So
okay.
CJSF, so 90.1.
Okay,
So we did that for like 7 years. Every Friday evening, we would
Wow.
have somebody different every week. So I felt a bit of a kinship when I would see you posting about your interviews every week. I thought, oh, Nancy sounds like my kind of gal.
Isn't it fabulous when people are
Yes.
willing to talk and share certain things? Like I call it magic, right?
Yeah.
So how did this come about though, getting that job?
It wasn't a job, so this was volunteer
Oh,
based because
okay.
it's through,
Me too.
yes, exactly, co-op radio. It was, so my partner that did the show with me, Luca, we trained as coaches together. And so we knew each other because of that. We had a practice of going out and doing things in public spaces, offering coaching to people. And through that, we just started a process of meeting strangers together frequently. And we'd often end up having really interesting conversations. And I don't really remember. Oh, I think I had a friend who posted that they were looking for new hosts.
Okay.
And I'm like, why would I have even initiated
How
that?
did you get
It was through me.
Yeah.
And so I ended up reaching out just out of curiosity because I knew they had a volunteer like onboarding kind of program.
Okay.
So I initiated that. And then I started helping out with their feminist show, which is intravenous.
Okay.
And got my sea legs kind of through that, like learning how to work the board. And then while discussing that with my friend Luca, she said, I could do a show with you. So we pitched an idea because in the end, our greatest joy is just interviewing people on the spot, which is exactly what you're doing, right? No preparation, no questions in advance, just being curious about who is this interesting person that's sitting before us, with knowing that they're interesting, even if we don't know a lot about them.
Yes, exactly.
And doing the active exploration in the moment. And we just had so much joy doing it. So
I love it.
Yeah.
What was the name of your show?
Essential Conversations.
Oh, very good. Yeah. It's kind of interesting when you said, it's just spontaneous because that's what makes it. I used to prepare questions.
Yeah.
And it stressed me out because I'd have these cards and I'd have to find the questions. Yeah. Right. So then eventually that's
I think when you're oriented from a place of curiosity and you're not worried about what you need to be talking about, you're more just pulling the questions that let the other person speak. I never had any fear about that because I'm insatiably curious, so that's fine. I can always ask the question that's going to pull something out from someone else. So.
And everybody has some kind of a story, right?
Absolutely.
Like the way I look at it, your life is different than mine, therefore it's interesting to me.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah.
So can you think about any people that you interviewed that stand out?
Oh, many, for sure. Okay, so I had two that popped into my mind straight away. One was an absolutely delightful interview with somebody who wrote a book that Luca and I had come across that was called What Do You Do with an Idea?
Okay.
And Kozumi, I think was his last name. Oh, I can't remember his name now. This is terrible. I forget his name in the spot. No, actually, that was the name of a different guest. That wasn't the correct name of the person who wrote the book. Anyways, the book is available through, I think it's called Compendium Press, which people can go and look up. When he came, we found out that he was like from the Northwest and reached out to him. We discovered he was actually going to be coming to Vancouver at one point. We said, would you come and do an interview with us? And he said, yeah, sure. So he showed up into our space. We got to have him on the show. And that book was a children's book, but it was kind of like Dr. Seuss stuff, right? It deals with big concepts, but then in such a creative, imaginative way, both through images and poetic language, that it really brought out encouragement and inspiration for the person reading it. And in the book, the representation of an idea is an egg with a crown on it, with legs. An egg with legs with a crown on it. When he showed up that day, he gifted us with 2 little plush eggs with crowns and legs. Still got it. It's one of those precious things now, right? Yes. And he was a quietly inspiring human. There was just a peace about him, but a joy. And it was so lovely to meet him. Another person that we had that we were so excited to reach out and invite onto the show was the president of Quest University up in Squamish, which is a really unusual, like an alternative university.
Okay.
I'd been fascinated by it for years and years and reached out to see if he was interested. He came and joined, and he was, from the moment we picked him up to take him up to the station, you could see he was completely unimpressed with us. He was just like, what have I signed up for? He was like checked out for the whole interview. It was so sad because it was like, we were fascinated with him, but he was just like, this is not worth my time.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that was a sad experience, but we still got, it was still interesting, right? The essence of it was still interesting. So
people are interesting.
People are interesting, even if they didn't think I was interesting.
But it's weird, was somebody wanted me to pay them to come on the show, and I said, well, I'll do this as volunteer. Well, if you can't pay me, you're not worth my time, is what he said. Right?
Yeah.
And I wanted to say rudely, F off, but I didn't. I just said, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like,
what I found is, so 7 years of doing that, and we had like, I think 200 episodes by the end.
Very good.
And many times people didn't show up, which I know that you've had that happen too. Since it was always Luca and I together, what we would just do is pivot into talking about whatever we were currently learning about in the world, and just sort of do a deep dive on existential topics. So we have lots of episodes that were just about that.
Right.
But what we found was through this space, which everybody knew was free, this was co-op radio, so nobody was getting paid anywhere. We never had any. Actually, it's not that we didn't have anybody ever expect any money. I don't think that was the case. But what we did learn to steer away from was people who came to us and like really said, can you please have me on? Can you please have me on? Because then all of their conversation was about something they wanted to promote.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Which was very different than meeting someone organically and then having a conversation. And we said, would you like to come on the show? And they're like, oh, okay. And they'd say, what do you want me to talk about? And we're like, no, we're going to just let you talk about you.
Right.
I mean, if you want to refer to something you're doing, that's great. But mostly we just wanted to pull out what made them, what made them make the choices that they've made in their life.
Yes, the
that
journey,
kind of thing.
right?
Yeah.
Because it's really interesting. Some people's journeys like this, and others are.
I mean, everybody we hang out with is like this.
Mine. And my kids went the same way, but it's really
at least interesting.
Yeah,
but we found that we ended up creating this incredible network of people just because we'd held this space for them to come and kind of shine their light, right?
Yeah.
And we were just in a space of curiosity and appreciation. And so they left feeling like they'd had a glow up, and they went back out into the world. And that not only connected them to us, but then also sort of vicariously to the other people that we'd had on the show.
Sure.
And there was this currency that was created, and it wasn't about, there was no, we did this for you, would you do this for us?
Yeah.
But, if years later I would see something that would make me think of them, I could say, hey, do you know this person? Can I connect you to? And oftentimes that would be a spark of something cool and new. And they were always positively disposed towards me. I think that's what I mean to say by the currency. They were always positively disposed towards me because we just had that opportunity to sit them down, let them talk about their stuff, and be witnessed.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a live show, though, was it?
It was. Yeah.
Okay. Because that's the difference. Like, I interviewed somebody, and then I found out later on people are showing me news articles about things they were doing wrong.
Oh.
So I deleted that whole interview.
Oh, yeah.
But it had already been up on YouTube, you know?
Yeah.
Right. And so that person was looking for it. And I said, listen, I'm getting all this stuff.
Oh,
I don't want my show involved with anybody.
Yeah.
It was horrible, you know.
That must be.
But you don't know.
Well, and here's the interesting thing. You were still having an interview with a real human being who is a complex being.
Yeah.
Right? What was present within that interview was still true about who they were.
Yeah.
And there were other things that when they come out, we realize, okay, this person is having an impact in the world in other ways that I don't really want to be looking like I'm supporting or furthering or causing more traumatization by putting their name or whatever.
Well, he was out lying to me. That was the thing.
Oh, gross. Oh, that's not good.
That was the horrible thing, you know, right? And somebody said to me, well, didn't you investigate? Well, no, I don't investigate. I'm not a reporter. I'm not an investigator. That's not my job.
No, no.
If you had to do that, because that's a lot of
that would be a lot of work,
and it's totally different thing.
It is a different
when you know, because that's when you're really looking for like I want
Yeah.
I'm sure you do the same. I want people to come on this show and just be free to talk about whatever they want to talk about.
Yeah.
Not what I necessarily want
Yeah,
them to talk about.
absolutely.
But
Yeah.
I might ask questions
Yeah.
that, but I always tell people, don't answer it. If you don't like the question, say, no, I'm not answering
Yeah,
that.
you could do that, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, and I'd often have people who just, you'd ask a question and then they'd go way over here and it was like, oh, okay, that's what they really want to talk about. I remember one guy we had come on, he's delightful. I still see him occasionally through dancing circles, which becomes part of the story. We'd invited him on because we connected to him through the work that he did in filmmaking with telling people stories. So we were very curious to know about, how did he get started in that? What was that all about? But of course, just curious about him. He didn't talk about that for even 5 minutes of this hour. He wanted to talk about dancing because he was very passionate about dancing. And later on, I did connect in with the dance scene that he's still a part of it. So I still see him regularly. But it was so fascinating for Luca and I to engage with. This was this person's forward-facing career and purpose and passion, and yet it was not what he wanted to talk about. But if we were going to try to keep pushing him over there, well, then that would have been a really boring interview because that wasn't where the spark was, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it was cool.
Have you ever, yeah, absolutely, I agree with you. Have you ever, when you meet people, it's kind of an interesting thing. Sometimes we connect, boom,
Yeah,
right? In a really good way.
Yeah.
And then you keep that relationship going.
Yeah.
Have you had that type of thing?
100 times. Absolutely. So many of those people. Because again, when you're in that space of curiosity, almost every week that we would have someone there, they would find their way into a place where you could see that they were offering something that's not what they offer to everyone. They were safe enough and courageous enough in that moment to share a part of themselves that was really precious. How can you not feel a special, both a special connection, a special respect, an honoring of this person? So that's part of that goodwill. It definitely went both ways. But yeah, one of the first guests that we had come on was not a person I knew before. We reached out just because he was involved in a community, a co-op working space that Luca and I just found was a fascinating concept. So we reached out to the person who was running it. Would you come on the show? And he's one of my closest friends. I didn't know him at all. And it was even a phone-based interview, but later on I met him in real life. And yeah, he's a big part of my life. So
is that right? Neat. Yeah, it is very neat. I love stuff like that. It's also too, I'm sure you connect to people's energy, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and you can feel it too. I can feel it between us right now because we're kindred spirits.
Well, what I love is somebody with your energy. Like I love that upbeat stuff. That gets me going. Yeah. I don't do well around people who are very depressed. And when
there are times that we would have people on the show and they would be. It was hard work. It wasn't very often. Right. It was not very often because you follow the energy too. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Gentle questions. You can see which things they lean towards, you follow that, and then it starts to open up. But sometimes it can be a slog. And sometimes that energy is not necessarily about the person, but about wherever they are, what they're experiencing in their life, or what their work is at that moment, which becomes really an essential part of what is needing to be communicated. And I'm sure that there were people that were listening that it really resonated with. Yes. And offered them companionship and consolation for what they might be experiencing. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Most interview, I think all the time, people connect other people in different ways, right? Yeah. Whether they know it or not. Right? Or they affect people, maybe is a better way to say it. They affect people by what they say. Yeah. So why did the show end? Why did you leave? We did it for 7 years, and over COVID, we had to pivot from not going up into the studio because they couldn't have. I mean, it was quite the closed environment where people were going into it after each other. You'd really pass germs around, so they had to close that off. We'd have to do it by Zoom. We'd have to record it, send up the audio files, which was okay. But then Luca and I were also not together most of the time we were doing that. So even us, we didn't get that energy boost between the two of us. So that was very recent. I didn't realize it was that recent. Yeah. We were doing it until 2021. Right. Fall 2021 is when we finally said, I mean, we've been doing it weekly for, that was 7 years, every Friday Friday evening. And I think both of us were just at a point where we needed to have a little bit more freedom in our schedules and just try some new stuff out. And I still have all of the recordings. They're still up on SoundCloud. You know, it was a joy. We still get emails from CJSF. They've still kept us on their list.
Oh.
They wish that we'd come back sometime, but then I moved out to Chilliwack, so it's not very accessible anymore.
Right.
But yeah, I mean that this and that is very much just a part of me.
Yes.
So I could see
Yeah.
myself picking it up again someday
Yes,
in another
yes.
form. Luca and I have talked about, well, what else might we like to do that could be on those veins? Because once you do it, you kind of realize it's not hard.
Yeah.
It's just about doing it.
It's just
showing up,
yeah.
inviting people,
Yeah.
and starting to create something consistent. And I see that with you. I mean, I don't even remember how we first connected on Facebook, but probably through a group that we're both in Chilliwack.
I don't join groups so much.
Okay, I don't
So
know how I connected with you, but
who knows?
anyways, we connected, and
Yes.
then I would see your posts about interviews and cupcakes.
You get to
Cupcake
take some home.
Oh.
They're lemon. Hope you're okay with lemon
Yeah.
cupcakes. Okay, good. Very good. I love it when people come here because I get to give them cupcakes. At the time. So it's always, for me, that's like, well, for me, it's a
You said
bonus.
you didn't pay your guests.
Oh, well, that's not true. But you know,
I feel pain.
the beauty is people donate supplies to me
I've been seeing that.
through Raby Mumford.
People have been helping me even with the mixer.
Yes,
I love, well, because you're spreading joy and they want to be able to be part of that, even if it's
So cool.
vicariously through supporting. I think it's wonderful.
It's
I'm
so cool.
glad.
I love that part of it, you know. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love getting. Okay,
Sure.
hey, feel free to give me stuff for
Yeah,
me.
yeah, absolutely.
I'm just kidding. But both of it is so much fun. Like when you give cupcakes, like when you're, especially when we do the cupcake festival,
Mhm.
that's when
Yeah.
we bake like 3,000 or whatever, you know, and people are sort of shocked
Well, yeah.
when they get here, you give
Yeah.
offering them a cupcake, and then
Yeah.
first thing you say, what's it for?
Yeah.
You know, like some people are leery.
Yeah.
It's going to make you smile.
I remember encountering that in Abbotsford. Do you remember something going on, like we're talking 2 decades ago, called Love Abbotsford? Did that ever get word of that over in Chilliwack? So I lived in Abbotsford at that time, and there was a whole movement, and it was going on for several years, and I don't know how long it lasted. But so that was a phase in my life when I was a pastor's wife, and just before and just after we had my firstborn, very young, you know, early mid-20s. And so as part of our connecting with other community churches, we were part of this movement called Love Abbotsford, which was a Christian-based wanting to just love on our neighbors.
Okay.
Irrespective of your own anything.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
your own faith background, your own cultural background. We were trying to just go out and do things that had no strings attached. And so every congregation, or even like groups within the congregation, it was kind of a fun spirit to it of what would give you joy to do that you can do easily, that won't make you feel overstretched or taken advantage of for doing this, that you can offer to anybody and be okay with them saying no if they don't want to receive it.
Right.
But then you get to have this wonderful moment of cupcakes were one of the things that people did, where they would have like cupcakes. Sometimes it was soft drinks, sometimes it was other things where they would go in, like, I think it was cars stopped in traffic and like offer them, and people were like, whoa, what's going on? Because it feels so weird.
Yes.
I think our society has ended up in a place of an expectation of transaction.
Yeah.
And so if you're giving me a thing, there is going to be an expectation.
Must be a reason you're doing it, and what is that reason?
Yes.
Right.
And it's hard to believe that the reason could be, it gives me great joy to see a smile on your face and to see the surprise of receiving something you weren't expecting to receive, that hopefully is something that's joyful for you to receive. Right. I mean, people were doing things like walking around with a lawnmower and saying, "Can we mow your lawn?" Right? And they're like, "What?" And some people are just really suspicious. And I think I have grace and compassion for that, right?
Yes, of course. Yeah. It's understandable because like you say, we live in that kind of world.
Yeah.
Sadly enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get back to you for a second, because you said you used to do coaching. What were you coaching?
I still do. So it's a professional development coaching. So I actually trained originally as a counselor when I lived overseas in Sri Lanka. So I know I've got all these myriad things in my past. So okay, phases of my life. I was a pastor's wife. I mean, that was here in Abbotsford. And then we spent a chunk of 7 years in Sri Lanka where my children were raising, and we had started and ran a school
Mhm.
that was sort of like a community college. It was a 1 year intensive program, and we brought youth in from the rural area that we were living. They got trained in things that enabled them to get hired immediately when they were graduating. And we did that for 7 years. And then we came back and I trained, well, just before I passed the leadership of the school over to someone local, and because I was the director of the school, so I
Okay.
put someone local in charge. And then I trained as a counselor for a year. And then we had to come back. And so that was when the war was ending.
Right, okay.
Wars don't end.
No, I know. Yeah.
So they pushed
Followed
us out.
us
They
forever.
canceled all the visas of anybody who'd been there for longer than 4 years
Okay.
because the war was ending. And basically anybody who'd been there long enough knew what they were looking at and had a voice to the outside world to be able to communicate that. And that made the government very uncomfortable.
Ah,
So they canceled all their visas. Only the people who were newbies were allowed to stay because they really needed the NGO
right.
infrastructure. So that it worked out okay for us. It was sooner than we were intending to come back to Canada, but my eldest son was not flourishing there. So we came back and settled in here. I separated from my husband at the time. And I pursued coaching because I didn't feel like going through the academic process of getting recertified as a counselor here.
Mhm.
And coaching was something I could step right into.
Okay.
But I've actually now used my counseling credentials from Sri Lanka, and I'm working now here in Chilliwack with Ann Davis Transition Society.
Oh,
So I'm a counselor there. Yeah.
that's so cool.
Yeah.
All right, very good.
Yeah, so the coaching is personal development. So
Mhm.
it's always about what's working well for you
Right.
and where is it that you're wanting to go,
Yeah.
and walking through that. And then because I did have the training as a counselor before, as you would come up against blocks or barriers or triggers, we could work through those. Most coaches can't do that because they don't have the counseling background or training.
Right.
They're supposed to refer forward. But that was what I was doing for a long time. And that work kind of bled through everything I did,
Mhm.
even though it was the direct work with clients was only a small portion of my business. It was what informed my work. I worked with Red Cross for a while, and I worked in high schools and up in Nunavut, going into communities to do training for violence prevention
Right.
or community emergency issues, and developed my own programs where I would run groups. My love is creating community.
Okay.
So that means I need to be connected in community too.
Right,
So
yeah.
since I just moved into Chilliwack a year ago,
Mm.
that's my phase right now, is connecting in with the
Okay.
community.
Yeah.
Pardon me, I should have probably got a glass of water.
You can get you some. You can talk to the people.
I'll talk to the people.
Okay.
What should I tell them?
Tell them anything you want. Tell them that's giving you some water, first of all.
Yeah. How would I tell you about Ann Davis? That's where I'm at right now. So I actually used to work at Ann Davis a long time ago, when I was newly training as a coach, actually. And those days I worked as the legal advocate, and it was under Bobby Jacobs was the director at that time, and we had a wonderful time working together. She was just so great. And so to re-engage with, I'm still talking, I'm coughing up as I go. Thank you. So
Look at, we're almost the same height. Oh, I'm
all of a
standing.
sudden there's lubrication in the throat. My voice is going to change timbre.
Yeah, so continue talking to the audience.
Okay, yes, I was thinking about Ann Davis. Now I work there as a counselor, and if anybody is local and you are not aware, Ann Davis has a bajillion services that are there for for mums and wives and children and couples, that will support them in counseling, that will support them in needs in their home space.
Yeah, they've been really good too, allowing the free store to use their facilities,
Exactly.
and it's just,
Yeah.
which is really wonderful because it makes a big difference, you know.
Mhm.
And I have reached out to somebody to get an interview, and I can't remember who the person was, but I did get a
I can put a word
response.
in.
Oh, good, do that.
There's a new ED that just came to join us, so
Oh, is that right?
maybe you should.
I'm always willing, you know, that's really great, yeah. Okay, so now you're doing counseling, and you're thinking of getting back into some form of interviewing?
Yeah, possibly. We'll see. I mean, that's something that's an easy skill set for me. So if there was something that looked really shiny and it just was an opportunity that popped up, I'd probably easily say yes to that.
Because
So,
it's a really, as you know, it's such a wonderful thing to be able to do, right?
yeah,
I mean, I've made friends, so many friends.
Yeah.
Some of them I've never met in person.
Yeah.
Still, you know, a friend in New Zealand who's been on the
Oh,
show a number of times.
nice.
And that's what I like, is when people, I think it says something good if people are willing to come back to your
Oh,
show, right?
absolutely. Yeah, we had a few repeat guests. We had a few people who would volunteer to fill in if somebody canceled. And so we'd reach out to them last minute, say, you want to come on again? Yeah.
So you have like, your children are older now?
Yeah, I'm an empty nester. It just
Okay.
happened within the last year or two. Yep. So I've got a son who was just over in Australia for a
Mhm.
while, doing some exploration. When he decided he was going to move to Australia, there was a part of me that was like, yeah, I sowed that in you, fully expected that to happen. I can't go gallivanting around the world myself when I'm young and raising my babies and not expect them to have that bug in them, right?
Yes.
So he followed his heart. He went to Australia to meet and live and experience what it would be like with his friend group that he'd met online,
Okay.
and to be in person with them there. And it was a challenging experience for him in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
He got the immigrant experience, which is not an easy experience.
Okay, I
right?
don't know anything about that.
Yeah, like, well, this is the thing. I think when we're born and raised in our own home country,
Yeah.
we, especially these days, there's a lot of rhetoric that is so negative about immigrants and ideas about their handouts or the things that are being, it's like, oh, it's not easy.
I know, my son
It
lives in
is not
China,
easy. Yeah.
so, but
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit different because China's a communist country.
Yeah.
And so that makes it,
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, in that sense, Australia, it's a democracy.
Yeah.
It's quite similar to Canada in a lot of ways. And yet, he was very much an outsider, and things
Yeah.
were not easy for him in a lot of ways,
Mhm.
not necessarily in terms of, like, he could kind of blend in,
Mhm.
right? But he was not given any equity, I guess you could say, in terms of like looking for jobs. So like for a year,
Wow.
nobody would even respond to
Wow.
his emails, which is the experience of a lot of people.
I didn't
Even
know
here,
that.
even locals here, right?
Yeah.
It's hard times for jobs right now. So but I think he hadn't had that experience before.
Right.
Not to be honest, I shouldn't be telling his story. That's his to tell.
No,
But anyways,
but-
he spent a year in Australia. He explored. He reached a place where he felt like ripe. Like he'd learned what he needed to learn, and he concluded that that he actually was ready to come home and do some more explorations and maybe next steps towards career here. So he just returned at the beginning of this year, which is awesome.
Very good.
Yeah, my youngest, who's 20, he's up at SFU, so he's studying computer science. Or
Right.
computing science is
Computing?
the proper way for
Oh, I
SFU.
didn't know
It's
that.
computing science. It's a thing, but everywhere else it's computer science.
Okay.
So this is a legacy that distinguishes SFU. I have been told.
Okay.
So,
Well, the young people, you have to, it's kind of interesting because like, even when they're little, like when they learn something at school,
yeah,
you're used to saying something a certain way as a parent, and
Yeah.
it's like, no, mom, that's
Yeah.
not how it's pronounced or whatever, You're like,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah. yeah,
Your teacher must know best. Like, I
Yeah.
never said that, but
yeah.
I thought it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this has been really fun though. This
Mhm.
is, I'm glad we're willing to come here and do this with
Thank
me.
you for having this.
Excellent. So,
Consultant.
I think we're gonna end it here, if that's
Okay.
okay, unless you have more to add. I'm always cool about people wanting to add more to the show. But anyway, we're probably gonna run out of time soon. Anyway, so to the audience, so you've been listening to Rebecca Mears. So remind everybody the name of the show because they can still find it, right?
Oh,
Okay.
Essential Conversations. Yes, and it's spelled essence, like you would go in like the essence of something.
Right.
Essence and then TIAL Conversations. Yeah, it's up on SoundCloud. Yeah, you can find it there.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So whatever SoundCloud is. Well, I kind of know. I'm that generation.
It's like
Anyway.
a radio YouTube.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's the easiest explanation I ever heard. Now that makes sense. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Anyway, everybody, thank you so much for watching the show. I hope you continue to do so. Take care, everybody, and peace out. And it's a sunny day. Well, who knows if it's going to be sunny when this airs. Later, peeps.